Welcome to part 9 of our build, where we construct the Clockwork. We'll start with all the ABS parts for the Clockwork, and we will insert the heat sets. We just simply place them in the correct locations, and make sure you double check, because once we use the soldering iron to place them, it's going to be difficult to make any changes. As the Dragon hot end ships with the neck on the top, it actually won't fit, and so we've got to take that off. So I'm using some Allen wrenches here. It's a very small Allen head screw, and while these are okay to loosen it, you're really going to need a ball end Allen wrench here, otherwise you won't be able to get these out. And now it fits. 4 screws came with the hot end that'll fit in these holes, and we'll attach that later. We won't right now as we assemble the entire Clockwork assembly. But here you can see the 4 holes where it'll attach. You need to check your cable chain to see how many holes it needs to mount on the end. The one that came with the Blurolls kit is a 3-hole mount. Don't make the same mistake I did and not read the instructions and end up putting heat sets in both. I'll take these out of the one with 2 holes later. The idler has 2 roller bearings inside. I already actually assembled this, and here I'm taking it apart so you can see how it goes together. These roller bearings, they need some grease. And so here I'm applying the white lithium using the syringe that I've used for the linear rails. I'm just putting a fine line here next to each roller, and I'm actually going to put some around the center. And then I'm going to insert it into the gear while I'm twisting the gear to help spread the grease a little bit. Once I did this, I actually pulled the shaft out and left the bearings in, but I did this from the opposite end. And again, using the syringe, I added some grease on the inside of the bearings just to be sure. You need to be really careful with a soldering iron when you put this heat set in the other end, as you'll see right now. Yikes. So because of this and some other mistakes I made, for example, using a screw that's too large, that's damaged the other end, also tightening a screw too tight and destroying the plastic, I decided to print a whole new one. I was out of this military green plastic, so I went with white. And so as you can see, I was simply heating up the heat sets using a small Allen key to pull them out, and then I transfer them along with the bearings into the newly printed parts. Now we can start assembling the extruder, and the motor mounts with, at least for right now, a single screw. And again, the instructions give you all the sizes. The bearings I've already inserted. And it's keyed, so for the most part, it's hard to misalign these. And then these screws that I'm entering in right here, screw them in all the way, but loosely, not tight yet. We have some other pieces to insert. Here you can see on the idler, I've inserted the thumb screw and the spring. And now we add it to the extruder. For some reason, this screw, one of these screws seems to be a little bit long, as you can see right here. I really don't like this, but it is the proper screw according to the manual, and I'm going to wait until the end. Hopefully I have a couple screws left over. If not, I'll order one to take care of it later. For this next part, we're going to take the two screws that hold a motor together on the opposite end of the lock, and that way we can add this mount. It was a little bit trickier than I thought. It would be good to get the screws started one by one. And now we can mount the wire shield. It's really only one screw, although it does seem to snap slightly against the two screws that are on the back side of the motor. And now we start on the blower. I wasted a huge amount of time on this thinking the blower didn't fit and I was shipped the wrong one, so I actually spent time looking online for a replacement until I realized you just have to disassemble the blower. The top pops off it really easily, just a little bit of pressure with your thumb to squeeze the ends in just a little bit and it'll unhook. I'm also taking the wire out of the I guess the strain protection here. And then the blower should fit right in. Make sure you align the wire so it aligns with the notch that's cut in the back for the cables to come out. And then make sure the front snaps on really nicely. It was a little bit harder than you'd expect. And then we screw it together. Be really careful here. This is just soft plastic. There's nothing else holding these bolts. So I inserted the hot end cooling fan and I made sure the wires trailed off the top, and then these two attach. And then you use a small piece of 1.75 millimeter filament. This is ABS, and this is actually what holds these two together. May take a little bit of effort to get it aligned and make sure you feed the wires back here properly. And then once you've got the filament in there as its hinge, clip off the end. And then you can go ahead with the rest of the bolts. So now carefully feed the fan and blower wires before you attach the gear head or the motor end. Some tape might actually be useful, but anyway, here you can see the wires coming out of the notch. And then start screwing this together. Now I'm feeding the wires through the side cable guide. So it looks all nice and tidy. And that concludes this video. If you find it useful, please click subscribe, and thank you, and stay tuned for the next in the series.